Welcome to Sage Women, the podcast for midlife ladies navigating perimenopause, menopause, and healthy aging. I'm Melanie White, and each week I talk with experts and women sharing real stories, practical insights, and smart tips to thrive through this stage of life and beyond. It's Melanie White here on the Sage Women podcast, and I'm really looking forward to speaking today with Jill Ogle, who's an integrative coach and works with women around imposter syndrome, among other things. Jill, welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Melanie. It's really nice to meet you. It's really nice to be here.
And I'd love you to explain, first of all, what an integrative coach is.
What I focus on is the mind-body connection and looking for subconscious and unconscious patterns that are controlling people's lives, and to really help people to own the parts of themselves that they've disowned. And how that shows up is, people wanting to get rid of parts of themselves, the dumb one, the silly one, the mean one, the whatever it is. And to also own the parts of themselves that they would like to be, because we give our gold away to people as well. What we see in others that we admire is also within us, but we've disowned it. And so why integrative is because we find these parts and we find a way to love them and how to take them back and to own them again, and to integrate them back into our being. And then we're no longer controlled by either the parts that we don't like or by not being good enough because we've given our gold away, and to really live a more authentic life and to stand in our power, really, and in our truth.
I know this is going to be really relevant for people listening because there's so many women starting on the perimenopause journey who have a sense that their bodies have been taken over by symptoms and changes. I certainly felt like that without my permission. And then you've got to make sense of a new reality that you feel like you don't have control over. And a lot of women take a big dive in confidence and start to doubt themselves. But I guess before we dive into that, I'm really interested to know about your backstory. How did you come to this point today? It's a question I love to ask every guest so that we get a sense of who you are and why you're doing this work.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely believed in magic when I was a child, and I
Yeah.
believe that's what I do now, is I help people to perform magic, because when you change the way you feel about yourself, your external reality changes instantaneously, and it feels like magic. I have had health challenges since I was 12 years old, and I went through so many misdiagnoses, undiagnosed by so many doctors. And I really had to become my own physician and to work it out myself. And on that journey, I found spirituality and self-development. And I really was introduced to that when my dad got sick. When was that? Nearly 18 years ago. And so I was on this journey of self-discovery, but I thought I was trying to work out how to save my dad. And he passed, but he gave me such a great gift in awakening me to the power of the mind, and how it impacts the body.
Mm.
So briefly, to your point about the hormonal changes and feeling all over the place, when our mind is out of balance, our body is also out of balance. So if we're looking at things, at life through this lens of this is good and that's bad, then that's throwing our system out of whack as well. When the truth is there is good in the bad and bad in the good. And when we start to look at life through that lens, then we also bring our body back into balance a bit more too. So that was my awakening with my dad. And then, I was sort of on that path for a while. And then I started working for Joe Dispenza. And I was doing the meditations and obviously and working for him and traveling the world. And that still didn't heal my body. And not only that, but I really saw in the community there was so many people that were struggling on this path with trying to be positive and trying to be, elevated and joyful and, this kind of one-sided version of themselves, because that's what they thought they had to do. And that was my story too. And, the power of positive thinking, and all of these things. But what I found, when I left Joe actually was that it's not about being positive all the time. It's about having a healthy optimism in life for sure, and knowing that things are going to work out. And you're still going to have challenges along the way. Like, you're not going to end up in this Pollyanna version of reality where everything's sunshine and lollipops and unicorns. And that was a huge thing for me, was realizing that, because I felt broken because I was unable to achieve this perfection,
Yeah.
Little did I know that it didn't exist and everyone was going through the same thing. And so that was really highlighted to me, working for Joe. There was people that were healing, of course, and there was really a lot of people that were struggling. And so then in 2019, my brother suicided, and that was the next kind of catalyst in my awakening. And when that happened, I was really, it really woke me up to this truth that it's not about getting rid of parts of yourself. It's impossible. It's about really loving yourself and loving everything about yourself. And so he really woke me up to that kind of next level thinking, which is, I'm really grateful for as well. And so since I've left and I've started doing that work and stopped, hating on myself and started to love myself, truly love myself, and to integrate these parts that I had gotten rid of or tried to get rid of a long time ago and forgotten about, I've healed so many things, really. I've had about 5 autoimmune conditions which are gone.
Wow.
And if you look at the meaning behind autoimmune, it's all about self-loathing and self-judgment. You're attacking yourself. And so, yeah, so that's a little bit about my journey. Like I say, in the last 5 years, I've healed more than I had in the previous 15 of, all sorts of methodologies and ways of thinking, and even back to 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when I was 12, when I got when I was first sort of having issues with my health. And that's brought me here.
What an amazing story. And I'm sorry to hear about your losses, but I also hear that they were quite a catalyst for you to really understand things and go a bit deeper.
Really huge. And certainly not going to suggest that you don't grieve, your losses and things like
Of
that,
course.
and process the human part of it. And if you are able to see another side to all of your traumas, all of your pains, your hurts, they don't hold the same weight that they used to, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my brother and my dad gave me these gifts. And had they not lost their lives in the process, it might not have woken me up so much. And I don't know where your listeners are at in terms of spirituality, but, I do believe in a soul journey, and we come here for a reason, and so did the other players in our life. And yeah, I really do believe that they gave that to me, that gift to me. So
yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I think a lot of people listening to this, well, we'll have 2 camps of people, I suppose, and people will decide, and that's their right to do so. And
totally.
what I know is the people that I know all have a curiosity, if
Mm,
not a dedicated interest in spirituality, because it is a part of who we are. We all have a spiritual element of some sort, or a
yeah.
religion, or whatever it might be, however it's framed.
Mm,
I'm really interested in your take on what causes people to want to pursue this Pollyanna state. What drives people to want to go to, I must feel good all the time, no matter what? In your experience, in what you've seen, I just heard you talking about it earlier, and I thought, yeah, there are a lot of people that follow
mm,
inspirational people, let's say.
mm. Um, in my experience, it's because you've had uh, a lot of pain in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you find out that there's this thing called positive thinking, and maybe if I'm just positive enough and positive all the time, then those pains won't hurt me anymore. Um, so that could be big traumas, little traumas, emotional hurts, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so because of the extreme pain, we go for the extreme pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
which is this kind of idealistic fantasy world.
Yeah.
And in my experience of myself and working with a lot of people, is they can't, or they're not ready. They're not ready potentially to, or they might not even know, because in my case, it was that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the path. I thought that was the way. And I just thought that I was
Right.
broken because I couldn't achieve it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's some people that are not ready to go there and not ready to really own who they truly are.
Mm.
I think there's people that don't want to look at their past pains and heal that. I think a lot of people would rather keep their head in the sand, and that's okay.
Mm.
Like we're all on different journeys and we're all at different levels. Um, but in my experience, absolutely, there's a lot of pain behind it. And I mean, you could go onto social media and find anyone that portrays this one-sided, happy, joyful life and have a proper conversation with them. And I guarantee you there's a level of depression there.
Mm. Mm. And we don't often talk about what sits behind those things. And if you just have to look at the statistics on anxiety, depression in women, in men, mental health generally, it's pretty high and it's increasing from what I hear. And it's even just saying that out loud, I'm thinking, how can we actually believe anybody who's on social media portraying themselves in that one-sided way?
Yeah, and you can't. And um, I can actually pick clients that way. Like I could go through my social media profiles and look at what they're posting and say,
Mm.
I can help you, because I mean I don't, but I
Yeah,
could, because
it's obvious
it's
to you.
obvious to me. It's
Yeah.
absolutely obvious to me. Um, and in my friendship circles, when I see that happening, I actually do reach out and I say, are you okay?
Mm.
Because it's not that, and I don't want to suggest that anytime you post something positive on social media that you're, you're
Yeah, that,
depressed,
yeah.
but there's an overtness to it.
Mm.
And it does become this extreme, the dancing on social media and all, like this real sort of high, um, you know, um, exhibition. And
Mm, mm,
yeah, that's, you can start to tell the patterns. But yeah, the anxiety, the depression, the suicide. I mean, there's so many of us that are having unrealistic ideas of how our life should be. And instead of loving what is and transforming our lives from that space, we've got these huge goals and no strategy to get there. And quite often they're not even our goals. They're injected or projected from somewhere else. And
mm,
this is where imposter syndrome comes in, because um sorry, and the self-sabotage, because if we're not doing what's true to us, then we will sabotage ourselves because it's not actually what we really want.
Yeah, right. So we're thinking one way, but our body's driving for something else.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you will feel like an imposter. You'll quit. You'll be like, why can't I do this? But it's like you don't actually want to do it in the first place. So we've got a crazy world out there. We've got lawyers that would prefer to be gardeners. We've got doctors that would rather be, cleaners. I don't know. We've got all sorts of things going on where people are doing things that they feel they should rather than following what is actually true to them. And the key in my mind to living a life that you love is to fill it with things that you love. If you can wake up each
Yeah.
day and do what you love and love what you do, then you've won half the battle. But when you don't, and that's not to say that you need to then go out and change careers and jump from job to job to job to find your thing or whatever, but because I do believe that you can be content in most situations as well. It's comes back to how you look at things, really.
So interesting. And I'm just thinking about a conversation that we had offline about sneaky ways that trauma shows up, and it's procrastination, perfectionism, people pleasing. Tell me a bit about those or any other signs that for people, you said some people just simply aren't aware of what's happening and they're living their lives trying to do better, doing all the shoulds, which I heard some person say once, should is other people's rules.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
a great way of saying it.
Yeah.
But if they're not that aware, but they're disturbed or bothered by some of those behaviors, tell me a bit about those and what they mean, or perhaps what other signs might people have that they're sabotaging themselves, that they're not aligned with what they truly want.
Yeah. Well, what I teach in my programs and in my coaching is we want to look at those dissatisfactions. So we want to look at, what you're creating in your reality, because that will tell you how you feel about yourself. We are constantly creating from our identity, and it's not necessarily our thoughts. People will sit there and say affirmations and, oh no, I am wealthy, but if you don't truly feel that way about yourself, then you're not going to create that result in your life. So it's about looking at what's happening in your external world. What results are you getting? Because as within, so without, which basically means our programming is creating the world around us. And then we want to look at our interactions with people. And, if you find yourself people pleasing, there's a couple of things. You'll be putting yourself down in the presence of others. So you'll be wanting to be liked. That's a classic people pleasing. You're not comfortable with who you are, which comes back to owning the parts that you don't like about yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Because once you start owning the parts that you don't like about yourself, they no longer control you. What you don't own owns you.
And so you must be first aware of those things, right?
Yes, yes. And look, some people won't be, and some people will never get there, and that's okay. However, you will start to know as you start to practice, as you start to become more metacognizant, and which just means self-aware, you will see, why did I say yes when I actually didn't want to do that? And you start to get curious, and you just start to notice these things, and you'll start to notice the patterns show up in your life. And, even relationships. Why have I attracted the same person again? Oh my God. Why does this keep happening? Why do I keep ending up in the same job? Well, you'll see these patterns start to repeat. And once you become aware, then we can start to break it down a little bit into what's going on, really.
I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into specific example of that if we can? Is there somebody that you've worked with, or a typical way somebody would come to you, a typical problem that they have, like, uh, I can't seem to earn any money, or I keep attracting the same sort of person, and maybe a little bit deeper on what's actually happening for
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. So this will trigger some people, and that's okay. I actually worked with someone not that long ago, and she was having problems with her partner. And what she was noticing was that when she would have a conversation with him, if she interrupted what he was saying, he would get really, really angry, like really, really angry, irate,
Unreasonably so.
unreasonably so.
Mhm.
And this went on for months, and she sort of talked to me a little bit about it, but we didn't go there yet. And then finally, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, she said to me, "Okay, I need to sort this out." And so we looked at what was going on, and in my work, we own the reflection. So we had to look at where she got angry when people interrupted her, and we had her own that. We had her find it and own it, and it's always there 100% of the time. And people will say, "Oh no, I'm not like that." But what's actually happening is your pride about not being like that is covering up the shame of where you are like that. And it makes it really, really difficult to find. For anyone listening, if you're triggered by someone, get clear on what it is that they're doing, and then go back for the past 72 hours and find where you've done it. And I promise you it'll be there. So that's what we did. We had her find the reflection. Where had she gotten, over upset, basically, when someone interrupted her. We owned that. We found the benefits of being like that. We found how it was actually serving. And there's a little bit more to the process, but basically we got to a point where she was like, "Oh, I can see it. I got it. Grateful.
Mhm.
Thank you. So glad that it happened that way. I can see what the message was there." And that pattern collapsed. That's what I call a collapse in my world. Now, this is where it gets a bit freaky, because she contacted me a week later and she said, "He's not doing it anymore." And I said, "Okay, well, that's normal." Because what's happening is he's only showing up in that way to get her to own her own reflection.
In response to her behavior.
Everyone's
Yeah.
coming to heal us, right? So
Mm.
everyone's coming to show us a part of ourselves that we've not yet owned, loved, and integrated. And she said, "He's not doing it." And I said, "Okay, well, that's normal." She goes, "No, you don't understand. Like, I've literally been provoking situations, like, trying to make it happen, and it's not happening." And I was like, "Okay, well, that is cool. That's pretty cool." And then I get another phone call from her the following day, and she said, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this." She said, I was just so blown away by the change in behavior that I actually said to him, "Do you remember, like, when we used to have conversations and, like, I'd interrupt and you'd get really, really upset by it, and you don't seem to be doing that anymore?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And she said, uh
Wow.
she's like, I know, I've got goosebumps. She said, "No, like, we'd have conversations and if I interrupted you, like, you'd get quite upset by that." And he's like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." It had been deleted. It's like it had just been deleted from her existence. And I know it was true because she was talking about it for such a long
Mm.
time. That's probably the most powerful collapse that I've experienced, where the other person just was unaware as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but they are the sorts of transformations that we have. Certainly the behavior changes every single time when you collapse a
Mm.
program, because the only reason, as we said, it exists is to show you a part that you've not yet loved. And, we're
Mm.
all mirrors. We're all just mirroring each other in this universe to learn and to grow and to expand. And I get it. It is hard to get your head around, depending on where you're at in your journey. But, people have come back from the brink of divorce. People have had challenges getting money out of people, business partners or bonuses at work, and that's just completely transformed.
Mm.
It really is magic.
It makes total sense. I mean, because the way you behave creates a set of conditions for other people to respond, as you've just described. And if we think about procrastination, perfectionism, or even people pleasing, if you come across a people pleaser in your daily life,
Mm,
how are you going to respond to that person? What
mm,
outcome does it get them, and what outcome does it create in the people around them? So if I think about people who excessively people please, maybe they seem needy, maybe it's hard work to be around them, maybe it feels suffocating to be around someone who's constantly trying to get your approval. And then for that person, what are they going through? Always trying to get external validation instead of learning to build their own strengths and capabilities, not believing in themselves, therefore not taking risks or seeing opportunities.
Absolutely. And our behavior will reflect our identity. And so if we
Mhm.
feel like we're not worthy, exactly all of those things that you're saying will happen. And, I had a friend years ago who, I can be pretty strong and pretty opinionated at times. And he would just agree with everything that I said. And it was challenging. It was draining. It was like, no, like, let's have a robust conversation about this. Like,
Yeah.
I can feel that you don't agree. So let's talk about this. But quite often, they've had conflict in their household as children,
Hmm.
um, and just wanting to please the parents to keep the peace and this sort of thing. Perfectionism, they probably had quite a strong parent with high standards and felt like they were never enough to fulfill that,
Mm.
parents' dream of who they're supposed to be. And so,
Yeah.
everything's got to be perfect or they won't be loved is basically what all of this comes down to.
Mm.
If I'm perfect, if I please enough, then you're going to love me. And
Mm.
really, we want to love people for who they are, who they truly are, their authentic selves, not some facade that they put on um, to be
Yeah.
liked. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And facades show up in so many different ways, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look, we all have them. We all have them. And it's just a process of, understanding, am I using this consciously now because, I've
Mm.
got a business meeting or, something going
Yeah.
on where I feel like I need to step into that version of me? Or am I doing it because actually I'm not enough without it? And,
Mm.
you know, the converse is actually true. And people, what they start to find when they start to love these parts of themselves is that it's okay. It's okay to just show up as you,
Yeah.
and you are lovable as that person. And in fact, when you're putting these masks out there so constantly and consistently and never really showing anyone the real you, they don't love you anyway. They love who they think you are. And you see
Yeah.
this on dates, right? First
Yeah.
dates, people show up with their best face on, and it's like,
Mm.
3 weeks later, it's like, who even are you? um
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great example.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And so, you know, the more authentic I can be, the more authentic you can be. We sort of give other people permission to do the same, and then, the world transforms from the inside out, in that respect. And There's truly nothing at all that you've done or not done that cannot be loved. There's really not. There's a beautiful, call it God, call it divinity, call it energy, call it whatever. But
Yeah.
there's this beautiful thing happening in this universe, and we are loved. It's not judging us. It's only us that judge us. And then other people, will judge us through their own deficiency or their own perceived deficiencies. So they're not even judging us. They're judging what they think about themselves.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? I'm really interested in this work that you're doing, and I can think of some examples in my own life where I have shown up a certain way or not, and what the outcome has been. It's pretty obvious when you start looking back. I want to know, what does it take to dissolve those blocks? I know you've talked about a couple of examples, but what are the things people need to do if they are thinking about this work, if they're hearing themselves in some of the things you're talking about, them going, well, what do I do now? What do I do with that? What are some kind of high level steps or things that people can do to start becoming aware and to start developing this sense of self-love?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, I steer away from affirmations and things like this because personally, I don't think they work. I think that if you were wealthy and you believed you were wealthy, you're not going to sit there saying, I am wealthy all the time.
Yeah.
Insert whatever else, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe journaling is a great first step for people. If you can even just pinpoint what's happening through your day that's upsetting you, that feels like it's throwing you off. We have mirrors all around us, with the people that we interact with.
Yeah.
And if you start to truly get honest about how you feel, instead of, I shouldn't feel like that, I shouldn't judge that person, I shouldn't, all the shoulds. Because how you truly feel is showing you the programming. It's showing you what's wanting to be loved. And we all judge. We all judge. It doesn't matter who we are. We all judge. And really, when we do judge someone else, we are judging ourselves. So we can start to reflect through the people that we interact with as to what that reflection is. So I really think that, at the end of the day, if you can sit down and do a journal and say, what's upset me, get specific, and then start to look at life through the lens of, okay, well, that person's coming to show me something. What is that person coming to heal within me? And then you can sit there and you can say, okay, well, in the last 72 hours, where did I dismiss someone's opinion? That's what's pissed me off today. Where did I do the same thing? And you start to find it, and that'll soften you a little bit. And then when that softens a little bit, there's a bit of a process we go through in my work, but that will soften it. And then when you start to soften it, you can start to see, okay, I am like them. They are like me. We're the same, and that starts to change the way you feel about yourself. It starts to change the way you feel about the other person. The other thing that I find really helpful for people is to write down a list of people that you admire. Write down a list of people that you admire, and what specifically do they do that you admire? And it could be, that you really like the way they communicate or present themselves on video, for instance. And so you go and find where you do that exact thing. It might be in a slightly different form, but where do you have that same presence? How do you show up with that same presence? And it'll be in things that are important to you. So if you don't care about video, but you admire that, then it'll be in your values, right? It'll be what you care about. And then you start to own those parts, right? And you're starting to become whole again, rather than this kind of fragmented version that we become over our lifetimes while trying to contort to fit in and be loved and liked and popular and So yeah, depending on where people are at with everything, I would just start with journaling.
I mean, it's a 50,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, I suppose, for some people, right?
Yeah, and look, it can be quite simple. Like the process is really quite simple. It's just, yeah, depending on where people are at with their journey and giving them the right piece for their puzzle, really. And yeah, the way we collapse these triggers completely, and you really do integrate that part of you, is by finding the unconscious content. And really for that you need someone to help facilitate it, because we are just completely unaware. We're so unaware, and there's no like one thing I can tell you to bring that up for yourself. Yeah,
It sounds like it needs to be done by a professional. It's kind of like a don't try this at home moment, because you don't know what you're going to unleash, is the sense I have. And at this becoming aware is the job of people listening, really, is that journaling, the insights, the reflection on the day and your own behavior, and then going to someone, what do I do with this now? Sounds like the safest path for people.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even what will I unleash, because I don't want to scare people. I've not had anyone freak out at all ever yet. But it's just more, I know what thread to pull. And I listen to what people say, and I'll pick up on a particular word and I'll be like, oh, what was this about? And so it's really about yeah, it's really is bringing the information to the surface, but it's really just the skill in the questioning and knowing which thread to pull and which word to pick up on and things like this. So it's nothing to be afraid of, people.
Actually, when I said that, I didn't mean for it to sound terrifying. I was thinking about people, because you absolutely need someone to help you. I know when I coach people, that's great, but I can't coach myself.
It is so hard to see our own stuff sometimes.
And then what happens if you get partway down the process and you take yourself down some weird rabbit hole that actually doesn't give you a result, or you feel, oh, well, that didn't work, I'm no good, and reinforces that? I guess that's what I mean, is if you try and do this without the right kind of support and expertise, probably the risk is failure and then feeling worse.
Yeah, we touched on that briefly before we came on, didn't we? Talking about some of these big events and things that happen. And you know, I went to Tony Robbins back in the day, and you know, 20 years ago, and you know, felt great for a couple of weeks after, and then felt worse than I did before. And once that hype wore off, I felt terrible and felt broken because it didn't work for me. When really we just didn't do anything that helped, is all. We didn't do any work that was a long lasting change or deep enough or anything like that. It was just all hype. But so yes, exactly that.
And as you're talking about that, I start thinking about extrinsic and intrinsic validation and motivation. If we're with other people and they're doing all these amazing things, we are pulled along with their energy, but we haven't yet learned to create that for ourselves. And that's the work that you do, I think.
Exactly. And when you find those intrinsic drivers, you know, that's your purpose. Like, that's getting you to your purpose, because really our purpose in life, or the telos in this life, comes from that intrinsic drive. It's not what our parents thought we should do. It's not what society thinks we should do. It is that internal driver. And so as you start to, you know, build more confidence and certainty and safety in who you are, then you're able to trust that inner knowing and that inner voice so much more. And not be so impacted by the extrinsic. And the thing with, you know, that external validation as well is, you know, if you're constantly seeking validation from your external, and that external leaves, then so does your validation. And And so if you find that within yourself and embody it, it doesn't matter who comes and goes because you are certain and safe and confident in who you are no matter what. So, yeah.
Amazing, Jill. We're just about at time for today. I would love to know one last question, actually.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably a piece of string question, but when you work with people, typically, how long does it take for people really to start making their own change, peeling back the layers and seeing a difference? What kind of time scale is that?
It can happen. It depends. It depends on, the individual and how willing they are to kind of go there.
Yeah.
I've had people have turnaround in one session. Certainly that's not my life is now unicorns and roses, of course.
Yeah.
But to have a turnaround in one session, generally I like to work with people for 3 months for 12 sessions. That really clears up a lot of the ancestral stuff, the family stuff, the family dynamics, your partners, your ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, that kind of thing. I had a woman come to me who was seeing a psychologist for 5 years. We worked together for 5 weeks and she was a new person.
Wow.
So, a lot of these things work and a lot of them also can keep you unintentionally stuck. It just depends on the foundation that everything's built on, because if you're trying to be not that part of you,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you see, who you talk to, it's never going to work. If you're understanding that that part of you is lovable and perfect and a-okay, then that's what's going to transform you. And that's not to say that if you love your mean girl, you're going to walk around being a mean girl all the time. No, it stops controlling you. It stops controlling you and coming out in ways that you don't want it to, or, are least expected or something like that.
We could talk for hours, Jill. I'm so fascinated in your work, and I'm really appreciative for you to be coming on today. Thank you so much for your time.
So
We will
great.
be sharing your details when we release this episode so that people can get in touch with you and learn more about your amazing work.
Perfect. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.